This video is on dividing a decimal by a power of 10, and it follows our last video where we multiplied decimals by powers of 10, and in that video we discovered that when you multiply a decimal by a power of 10 you can move the decimal place to the right. Well, I hope that's gotten you thinking about what happens when you divide a decimal by a power of 10. Let's have a look at just a couple of examples to see if we can figure it out. So I've got 3.57. And what I'm going to do is, just like in the last video, I'm going to take each of the numbers in 3.57. So I'm going to take the 3 units, the 5 tenths, and the 7 hundredths, and I'm going to divide each one by 10 to see if there's a bit of a pattern happening. So if I take the 3 units, fairly straightforward, and I divide by 10, then I get 3 tenths. And that is just 0.3. So I've got 3 tenths now. I can write the 3 in the tenths column. So the 3 units has moved one place over to the tenths column. And this is the opposite of what happened with our multiplication video. With our multiplication video, when we had 3 units and we times by 10, then it moved one place left. So we've got the opposite happening, which is what you would expect with multiplication and division. So next we're going to look at 5 tenths. We've got the 5 in the tenths place, and we're going to divide by 10. And dividing by 10, we've got our fraction work, is the same as timesing by the reciprocal. The reciprocal of 10 is 1/10. So I'm going to get 5 times 1 is 5, and 10 times 10 is 100. So I'm going to get 5 hundredths. So the 5 used to be tenths, has moved from tenths to hundredths. The pattern continues. We're moving one place value over to the right. So I can put a 5 in the hundredths column. Let's see what happens with the 7 hundredths. I'll take my 7 hundredths and divide by 10. That is the same as taking 7 hundredths and timesing by 1/10, which gives me 7 thousandths. So I can put a 7 in the thousandths column, and once again the hundredths has moved from the 7 hundredths has moved from this place value here, this column, over to the thousandths column. So when I divide, all my place values are moving one to the right. So my final answer ends up being 0.357. So I want you to think about what happened with multiplication. And with multiplication, we moved the decimal place one place to the, we moved the decimal place to the right. It was one place because we looked at the number of zeros in 10. And this time around, we have 1 0 in 10. And the place value has moved from here all the way one place over to the left. With multiplication, we moved the decimal place to the right. Turns out what's happening with division is my decimal place is moving one place over. We could see in the table that it's actually the numbers that are moving a place value over, but the easier way to do these questions without a table is to move the decimal place instead. So we're thinking with a power of 10, or dividing by 10, we can move the decimal place one place to the left. Let's see if that happens with dividing by 100. So we're going to take the only number that we have to worry about in this question, which is the 7 thousandths. 7 thousandths. And we're going to divide by 100 this time. So we've got 2 zeros in 100. We do that, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal of 100. The reciprocal of 100 is 1 on 100. And that gives me 7, and then over 1 with 5 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 7 over 100,000. So I've got 7 hundreds of thousandths. It's over here. 7 hundreds of thousandths. So the 7 is moved from the thousandths column 2 place values over. So I would need to fill up all of these values 1, 2, 3, 4 with zeros. So I'm getting 0.1, 2, 3, 4, and then 7. So where has my decimal place moved? Well, we always look at the number of zeros in my power of 10, and in this case there are 2. So I'd expect, if I follow the pattern that happened in the last video, that we moved 2 places over. So if that happened, I would need my new decimal place to be here, and I would fill this empty hump with a 0. Keep losing my decimal place. So that would give me 0.0. There's my 0, 0, another 0, 0, 0, 7, which it does. So we are moving the decimal place to the left with division, not to the right, to the left, and we must pay attention to the number of zeros in the power of 10. Let's have a look at a few examples. We're doing 2.86 divided by 10 squared. Well, 10 squared is just 100. We can either use the power to decide how many jumps to make of the decimal place, or we can just count the number of zeros. So we're doing division here, so we're going to go to the left. 1, 2, new decimal place. Empty humps get filled with zeros. So 0.0286. We're dividing by 10, just 1 0 in my power of 10, so we'll move over 1 place to the right, 0.703. Here we've got a power of 3, so that means there'll be 3 zeros, which it is. It's 10 cubed, which is also 1,000. I'm going to take 3 jumps. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to the left. Big decimal place when I finish, so I remember to put it in the right place. 0 point, so I've got here 1, 2, 3 empty humps to fill. 1, 2, 3 times. So it's 0.01, 2, 3, and then I have, oops, silly me, careless. So let's try it again to not confuse you and to not confuse myself. We're going to take 3 jumps from the decimal place. 1, 2, 3, new dot. And I can see that there was already a 0 here. Don't ask me why my scribbles are disappearing. I'm not really sure. There was already a 0 here, so I don't have to put a 0 there. But I will need one here, and I will need one here. So my answer is 0.00009. So I've got here 1, 2, 3, 4, and then my 9. All right, I fill in the blank. 108 divided by what gives me 1.08? Well, I know that my decimal place in 108 starts at the end. So it's been moved 2 places to the left. And to move it 2 places, I must have had 2 zeros. So I've divided by 100, or I've divided by 10 squared. Just a couple of reminders with dividing. Don't forget to count how many zeros there are in the power of 10. Okay, that's very important. It tells you how many jumps you need to take, or how many times you need to move the decimal place. With multiplication, we move the decimal place to the right, and so with division, we've seen that we move it to the left. Don't forget to fill any empty humps with zeros and mark your new decimal place, your decimal point clearly.